Go for it.
Is the Brave Smite on Kiluane. We saw how he was punished yesterday by Team Tunisia.
I was just going to mention
it was
that.
Bakchia versus Akai. You know, the Brave Smite not going for the concussive blast, but on the other side, you see Dark Prime with the concussive blast. So he's already a very fast clearer on the Barats plus the concussive blast. We'll see how Kiluane is able to utilize this Brave Smite. Maybe this game it'll be a bit different in these team fights, maybe sustaining a bit more. But they also have got to be very, very careful, because if Billy decides to just stand in place, pop that Revitalize, and gets the photo early, this is a tanky lineup, bro.
Oh, right now. I mean, this is what they're going to hit that level 4. They are tanky. Not only are they tanky, but they can also just kind of play around with the fact that you have so much healing available to you. I mean, even the Terizla alone in the hands of Elsis is fine. Like, you can actually utilize that Brave Smite really well, build up on it, and the way that the passive works, Body of Smith, you're quite tanky just by yourself. That's a really good push, though, on bottom, and a lot of extra gold going in the hands of Senegal here. So, you know, with these like minor plays that they're making without even really fighting, look at that. They've garnered themselves, you know, 600-700 gold ahead of Mali right now. And right now they're just going to go ahead and start up this turtle. But I think there is going to be a fight for this one. There's still some level 4s that have to come online for Mali, but they're going to go ahead and start it up. They're going to get in position. First turtle going to be already secured here by Kiluane, and they push him back a little bit further. Billy on the run here, gets knocked up, still has the heal though, and will get out. But now the fight here for that purple buff, it looks like they're just going to give it up and let its Dark Prime go ahead and grab it.
Yeah, a bit of an off timing for Dark Prime there. A bit of an awkward situation for him. Unfortunately, had to use Retribution earlier, so it was not up during the turtle. And Kiluane then was just able to use that heavy spin. Stay composed, but up top, Pimp My World putting some pressure down with that Dispersion to Yakuza, getting the diversion. And that's actually just really good space, right? You don't get the kill up top, you don't really get too much damage on skill to kill, but relieving pressure off of this Natan in the gold lane is going to be very, very good for them. If this Natan is able to scale equally to the Clint, especially up to
Wayne, but they're under the turret. It's 4 versus 2. They already know he's quite low. Billy takes tons of shots and will go down. That's going to be the first blood. There's the lockdown with heavy spin, and that will get them the second kill as well. A pickup here for Senegal.
Clean plays coming in from Team Senegal. Mali not really able to retaliate, to react, and not even able to find any sort of compensation on the other side of the map, man. They rotated Dark Prime towards the bottom lane. They try to get Diablo, but it seems Diablo has been able to play this weak side so well. Knows that his team was up top, doesn't want to use too many resources, doesn't want to overstep in the bottom lane. He knows that the turtle is going to be spawning, and he will be the strong side eventually again when that turtle spawns, and we've actually reached that point. A 2,000 gold lead already held down by Senegal, and Diablo's doing a bit of damage, has the Black Dragon form, but he just calmly just, you know, goes back out. He's done enough damage to Elsis, and I think that might just be a good angle for Senegal to secure another neutral objective for free. But Dark Pride wants to fight for it.
See if they can. Again, less than half health here. Diablo trying to zone them out the best they can. They're going to find the lockdown with the Petrify as well. The damage comes through. Circling Eagle. It's Dark Prime's going to be taken out. And that's just going to be the objective now in the hands of Senegal. All they had to do was take the jungler out, and they secure it themselves. So very good timings here that we're seeing from Senegal. This is good improvement from even yesterday alone.
The synergy is way better in the draft as well, right? This time, they're actually more of a kind of a kite back composition. They have a little bit of dive, but they can kind of do both. They have re-engage and a Black Dragon form.
Black Dragon form under the turret. They're going to want to fight once again, zoning them completely back here to the tier 2. The backup's there, but Billy is gone in an instant. The heals are not enough to save him. They'll lose this turret too, as the next wave is going to be pushing into the tier 1. Senegal very decisive in what they want to take, and even if it's just a kill or a couple ultimates down, they're happy with that. They've garnered themselves nearly the 4,000 gold lead at this point, and they're fully confident in invading this side of the jungle as well to keep putting pressure on Mali. And it's Dark Prime having a hard time. He's got to rely on Billy to help him out. And they have the sustainability to help him out. It looks like 4 members are going to be here. This could actually just break out into a fight. Flicker already going to be used. Going to want to fight him up. Daytona's welcome, but they get shot into it. Heavy Spin goes down too. Diablo's going to fall into the penalty zone. And it's 1 down right now for Senegal. And the buff was secured for its Dark Prime.
Finally on the board, Mali. Dark Prime as well, able to out-retry Kilowane in that initiation, in that team fight. But again, it does seem like, even though, you know, that's the first big win for Mali. It's a small win, but it's their first win in this game so far. That's a War Axe actually built up by Dark Prime. So very, very interesting build here. Still wants to be a very, you know, I think he wants to be a little bit of that damage dealer, hold the lines by dealing damage, not only just by being a frontline, because the Clint has been behind in the early game. Remember though, for Senegal, all they're doing is really just waiting for Gunk to get online. And right now, he already has a Sarlium Scythe and a Feather of Heaven at the 6th minute of the game. Building towards the Holy Crystal at the 7th minute is really, really good timing. Yakuza has hit his Power Spike too, technically, with that Enchanted Talisman. The base damage plus that Enchanted Talisman will be able to do a lot. Heavy Spin!
Heavy Spin gets the Black Shoes out. Circling Eagle going to find 2. So still, they're going to respect it. They're just kind of, once again, getting things out. Retry was used as well. So it's Dark Prime. He's not going to have that. This is going to be a turtle just taken for Senegal. There's no way they can really contest this without even having that retribution. And so now that's the 3rd turtle now taken from Senegal. They're actually going to want to fight a little bit longer. Under the turret, it's a full-on fight. Dragon Form going to be used as well. But look at the heals coming through. The Gunk is going to be able to survive, but look at the setup, the Petrify on top of it, the knockup, all under the tier 2 turret they go. They're taking too many shots from the turret, though. It will be a trade. It's a double for Elsis, but now here's Gunk, fully healed, backed up. He'll get the kill, looking for more with the Entropy, and gets the double. It's a full-on wipeout.
An amazing team fight by Team Senegal. It looked really messy at the start. You know, it looked like the Holy Healing and the Revitalize was going to do a lot of work for Team Mali, but Senegal just fought through it with their own sustain. Really well played there by Diablo. It could have been so, so bad. And I think this is one of the rare cases where, you know, that KD 0 and 2 definitely doesn't reflect the impact that he had in that team fight, because he was able to stop Mali from doing damage with that Furious Eye Petrify combo onto 4 members. He also bought so much time for Gunk, because initially in that team fight, Gunk was actually poked down to very low HP. He was able to rotate, get that regen, and also just get a few hits on that mini wave in the mid lane to be able to just sustain back up and then re-engage later once the Entropy came back up after that cooldown. So really well played by Senegal. They played their cards extremely well, and they played that prolonged fight really disciplinedly, right? They really didn't try to force anything. Once they knew that they were under the turret, the team actually disengaged. They let Diablo just stay in front. That's a death to this welcome. Everything. Oh, goodbye, Diablo. 0-3 in this game. He's gone 9-4. Very unfortunate for Diablo, but again, I would still say it's a big win for Senegal, right? Despite Diablo dying 3 times, he's kind of the sacrificial lamb in this game. On the Yuzong, he's the initiator. He's the guy with the most CC technically to go for the initiations, and then Kilowane will most likely be more of, you know, he wants to use the heavy spin to go for neutral objectives or pickoffs. So Diablo, he has to do the dirty work. I think it's completely fine for Senegal that 3 deaths are on him instead of the big carries.
You see what happened in the bottom lane?
Yeah.
Oh, they said that on version. The whole team went there. So Billy sacrifices himself, and Elsis was able to get out. Good play, but look at the response. They know they have that information, but they're going to try to just burn this Lord down. But here comes the Dragon Form from Diablo once again. Still has the Petrifile available.
Whoa.
Looks for the knockup. They're trying to buy enough time, but the combos come down. Mega kill already. Lord going to be worked on. It was secured by Gunk. And now they're going to be looking for more bodies as it's a triple for Gunk. The damage department is online. They sent him up top as well, looking for the Maniac. And they're going to cut him off, but Silent to Kill caught by himself under the turret here. Billy finally able to go in, but look at the Entropy damage. Goes in, still looking for Billy. Won't be able to find it though. Man, what a dominant performance so far from Senegal in that fight. And now they'll march down the mid lane here, working on the base turrets.
Desperate times calls for desperate measures, man. Divergent. Oh, Detson is welcome.
Detson is welcome into the team here. Pimp My World takes the shot. And it's Dark Prime. You saw the damage, Mirko. It is intense right now.
Yikes. They tried to trade. They tried to go for something. You got to give them respect for that. But Team Senegal are so far ahead, and they have a diversion to play with. Again, Kiloane zoning them.
Heavy spin going to be used alongside the Dragon Form, pushing them back further. Lord's still going to be up here. They have to take it down. They'll finally get that one down, holding on to the base. Top turret still on the sets of Senegal. They'll go ahead and work that. It's going to be a fully exposed base now. Billy gets taken down so quickly. Once again, the passive will not be enough to find the kill either. But right now, Mali holds on to their base crystal, but they've lost every single turret.
Unfortunately for Mali, it does seem like the end is inevitable for game number 1, right? They're up against a scaling composition within the ton, and he's already level 14 at the 11th minute of the game. He picked up the Holy Crystal earlier, actually a few minutes ago, with 7 kills on him. He's a rich Natan, man. He's a snowballing Natan. And it's a late game pick. It's a late game carry. The fact that he has so much gold, so many resources to play with in the first 11 minutes of the game, I think at this point he's going to build a Divine Glaive, right? And then Team Mali, their front lines won't really be called front lines anymore. The front lines might as well be backliners, even with the Vengeance. Because with the Divine Glaive and the Holy Crystal this early in the game, Gunked isn't going to be doing magic damage. At this point, he's basically doing true damage to everyone on Team Mali. And Kiloane as well, to add salt to the wound, man, that's the anti-Cuirass. So if skill to kill, if it looked like at least he was still doing damage earlier, now with the anti-Cuirass, man, that's going to stop a whole lot of his damage output. And Kiloane has been doing a great job at actually just using the heavy spin to zone them away from these turrets. And I'm not going to be surprised if actually Senegal decide to go for the push without the Lord, because they have so many ways to dive, so many ways to, I think, just distract Mali. And then with that distraction, they could just utilize the big space created by the 2 initiators to go straight for the base. But it seems for Team Senegal, you know, they don't really want to go for anything too risky. They have all the cards in their hands. They have this game on their hands as well. And yeah, as expected, Divine Glaive already. That Radiant Armor is really not going to be doing much, right? At this point, you really have to... You basically need a Radiant Armor and maybe 5 Athena Shields to deal with this threat. If you could! But you have to go for Dominus Eyes and the War Axe. And it's unfortunately not going to happen for Team Mali. Not right now. Even if they try to contest, I don't think they'll be able to even step foot into that river. Look at the zoning done by Team Senegal. And even in the bottom lane, Diablo... Mali are so scared every single time they try to trade. They're the ones who get punished instead. Now with an enhanced Lord marching down in the mid lane, coming and spawning in the game, and 3 waves pushing, it should be the end.
Oh, they're actually already going to use it. All right, Circling Eagle early on. Not waiting for the Lord just yet, but we've seen this before, Mirko. This could be that push that ends this game number 1 already. So we'll see if Mali is able to do it again. They've been down by 11,000 gold for a few minutes now. Big item pickups all online. Look at the damage already. Dragon Form onto the team. He doesn't commit it just yet. They're going to have to work on the waves and the Lord here, trying to zone them out the best they can. And that's going to be its Dark Prime gone in an instant. He goes in with a Furious Dive, knocks him up. Base going to be worked on. And it looks like it's going to be game number 1 in a dominant fashion, going in the hands of Senegal.
Well played, the Team Senegal. Playing it clean, clinical gameplay there, not really forcing anything in the game, just utilizing their leads all the way from the start. And I think this is what we kind of expected from yesterday's performance as well, because up against Tunisia yesterday, they were swept 2-0, but it didn't look like they had no idea how to tackle the game. They had very, very good plans. They had the winning condition in their minds, but unfortunately, they just got out-executed, right? And this time, it definitely felt like Team Senegal with the loss yesterday, they've definitely, you know, reviewed the game again, looked at it again, and improved. And that's why we were talking about the losses yesterday that could turn these teams into absolute monsters. We've seen teams in a lot of different tournaments, even in IESF before, lose out in the upper brackets or in the first few matches that they play, and then they utilize those losses to scan their mistakes, to learn from their mistakes, and come back even stronger. And I think that's exactly what they did here. Started with the draft. We kind of criticized the draft yesterday for being good, but also lacking that synergy. This time, they got that down. They got the heavy spin and the Loyi combo that they were expecting, they expected to use yesterday as well, but now it definitely worked way better. But on top of that, they went for the Natan instead of a diving MM in the gold lane, like the Roger that we saw yesterday. So technically, with that Akai, it just provided so much more space for the Natan. They were able to relieve the pressure off of the Natan in the early game up against the lane bully and the Clint as well. And they won in the neutral objective battle through invades, which was kind of unexpected, honestly. We were expecting them to win in the team fights, but definitely not in the invade department. We didn't expect you to kind of make a lot of these invades happen in the early game, but I guess when you have a Mathilda on your team, that's kind of what you expect. Even when you have a Brave Smite, even when you don't clear as fast as the Barats, the fact that he was able to bait out the Retribution from the Barats so that he could secure Turtle number 1 for free, that was already just such a big win for Team Senegal, because that should be the hardest part of the early game. Winning out in a retreat battle with that heavy spin, usually it's 100-0, right? It's not even a 50-50. But with the Barats in the fray, with the Death is Welcome, that's anti-CC. It makes it a bit more 50-50. Luckily, no Retribution though, so good forced errors placed down by Team Senegal. And then after that, the way that they snowballed was just so clean. Always using their advantages, using the diversion to catch them off guard, the opposing team who wanted to utilize the mobility as well from the Rafaela, the clear speed. And for, the first 6 minutes, the Barats was actually pretty comfortable. Despite not getting the first 2 turtles, he was still leading in XP. It just goes to show you how strong that clear speed is for the Barats in the jungle, especially with the Concussive Blast and the War Axe Rush. But unfortunately, he wasn't really able to tank up that damage, soak in that damage up against the Natan. Heck, the Terizla with the Vengeance as well. I get the idea. On the Terizla, you want to go Vengeance up against a Natan technically in this game because you want to soak in that damage. But I think the better plan would be just to maybe go for the Flicker, win that lane in the XP, and then rotate to try to catch that Natan, bait out that Purify. Unfortunately, that kind of happened. They tried to overwhelm the Natan with a Purify, and they did get the Deton's Welcome on him in the late game, but then the Purify was still up. I think in this whole game, Niso, we saw the Natan Purify once, and it was in the game-ending push.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you called it before the game even got to that point, right? You're like, I think it was the 11-minute mark you mentioned, 11-minute mark, you're locking in that Holy Crystal. Even before then, he already locked in the 2 items that was needed, that was necessary to get online pretty much. And then once Holy Crystal was there, Radiant Armor alone wasn't going to help you. And I think that's why at the same time, you're thinking, all right, Raphael, at least we have heals. At least we even have that Revitalize, that can help us out. But it didn't. I mean, there was what I have to say that Senegal did really, really well as they approached those fights in the early game before the power spikes went out of control for them, was that when they approached the fights, especially around some of these objectives, it was to a point to maybe get a Holy Baptism out that was utilized. Maybe it was a Revitalized, the heals. They played around the push and pull very well in the early game so that they didn't get overwhelmed by that healing, by that sustainability. And then they were able to eventually just kind of snowball from there. After they played that really correctly or really well in the mid game especially, then they just took off from there. And I think that's what happened. So it's again, when we went back to the draft, man, and we saw those first 3 picks. It was the Loyi. They locked in the Loyi. Then they had the Matilda. And the second pick was what was the second pick? Second pick for Senegal.
Mali? Oh, for Senegal.
For Senegal. I know it was Loyi, and then there was Matilda. Second pick, I can't remember. Yuzong. So the Yuzong. So power pick so far, just in general. But then Yuzong is after what we saw yesterday, man. I don't even remember if Yuzong had
100% win rate just
yesterday. 100% win rate, right? So we were saying this is the hero in the XP lane for this region, and they played it. Diablo played it to the T. And even though he died a couple times, it was just he had his timings on the Furious dives perfectly. And I think that's why at the same time, Killuane, he had free reign on how he wanted to use heavy spin. And that's what, if you really want to talk about when you lock in an Akai and you can just have that freedom to decide, do I want to lock down? Do I want to just focus on these objectives and farm? That is such a good place to be for any jungler, or especially on an Akai, of course. Because he can rely on the fact that, we have a Yuzhong, right? Diablo's going to find the sets. He gets the Petrifies off really well. And if not, we have a Matilda or even a Diversion. That's what I was saying. Those first 3 picks were so much utility that there's literally a tool in the tool bag for every single situation that Senegal could have utilized. So that's what I loved about just the first 3 picks alone. And then they really rounded it out as they went throughout the rest of the draft, and it was executed very, I would say nearly perfect here for this game one.
That's why the drafts are just so important, right? We were emphasizing on the point of the drafts being the main tool in the online qualifiers for the Africa region. Because again, yesterday as well, every single time, I think we were able to pinpoint the better draft. You know, all 6 games that we were able to cast yesterday, it just looked so much more convincing for Team Senegal because they had the right I think choices to go for in the draft. They had their mind on priority and they went for the Loyi and then straight up into the Mathilda deny pick that also works really well in their composition that wants to dive and wants to go for the Akai, and then they pick up the Yuzong. Yesterday when they went for the Loyi, when they went for the Roger at the start of the game, it was traded out for the Yuzong and the chip by Tunisia, right? So for Senegal this time, when they already have the understanding of the prio in the meta currently, and they're able to get so much of their hands on these big picks, it just felt like Team Mali were kind of playing more towards their comfort than towards the meta. I get that the Clint pick can work. I get that you want to try to win out in the early game in the gold lane. Maybe picking it up in the first phase is a bit too expensive, right? Especially when you already go for the Barats. You'd expect the Barats Mathilda to come up instantly, especially after you see the low Yi. But at least if you don't want to go for that Mathilda, maybe the roamer isn't comfortable, the Yuzong. You said it, 100% win rate. All throughout the games yesterday, we haven't seen a bad game for the Yuzong. Technically, based on KD, that previous game was the worst game for Yuzong. But even then, he had to do the dirty work. Diablo 0, 3, and 8 at the end. It doesn't matter, though, because he performed really well, and the impact that he had on the game was phenomenal. It was great stuff. He got a 4-man Furious Dive Petrified combo in the bottom lane that set the team up for success, that baited out all the resources from the opposing team to give Gunked enough space to then just clean up, you know, act as the janitor there, clean up these scraps with all the very low HP that they have. But all the dirty work was done by Diablo. Yuzong is a very big prio pick here with the brawls
and the
team fights that we have seen in the African regional qualifiers.
And you know, I think that's part of the job of the XP lane, man. And that's why I'll always say this. I've been saying this for like, I feel like a better part of a year plus at this point, where I'm like, you know, XP lane for me is the most impactful lane, not just in the fact of what's available hero-wise, like meta or how you can change that even, but just the course of the start of the game to the end of the game, right? Like, I mean, even think about it. Everybody comes to the XP lane before the first hurdle because like they want some of that XP for that level 4, you know, that level 4 ability, right? But that's the thing, is some of the teams, they don't have the way to move around the XP lane like we've seen so far. And what I mean by that is, so far, some of these the teams that we've seen from just the Africa regional alone, and actually this is for all MLBB esports, when you really look at the XP lane and you think about, let's say, teams for, hey, is this a weak link or is this the strong link of a team? I'm sure in your head you can probably think of some weak links in the XP lane and some strong ones, and you know how much success they bring to an overall success of the team. I mean, even looking at last year's IESF champions, we know just how good the XP laner was from the previous, you know, team for the champions, right? Flat Peasy out there. So that's the thing, is when you see this kind of unfold in the XP lane, keep an eye on it, because that's where you really want to see things unfold, and then everything kind of resolves around that. Sometimes they are I'm going to do the dirty work, sacrifice myself to set things up, and that's good. And sometimes they're the ones that are peeling for the carries, for the gold laners to pop off later on and do things and set things up that way. So that's why I love the XP lane so much. So you know, I don't main it. I'm a mid main, you know, I'm a mage main, but I really appreciate watching these guys play in the XP lane. So let's see what happens here. We go into the draft for this game number 2.
As a mid laner, I think then you have the credibility to talk about how XP lane is very important, because you know how it feels when you're going up against a good XP lane, especially on the Yuzong, these heroes that dive towards you as a mid laner. I know you play Gord, right? That's the worst thing in the world, going up against Yuzong.
XP lane Gord.
Keto. Oh, maybe that's the new meta that, you know, we might see from them. I highly doubt it, though. We did see a Gord just yesterday, but it was played in the mid lane, the usual role. But hey, we did see a Yin roam. I won't close that out. We might see that. Still, though, you can see that respect for the Hanzo in the first phase. Still the respect for the Masha, too. Not a lot of crazy changes here in the draft so far, despite the change in sides. But my big question now is, will the Loyi be prioritized by Mali? Because it was prioritized, it was first picked over by Senegal on blue side. Now that they banned the Masha, are they going to ban the same exact things as they did in game number 1? The Harley and then the X-Borg, right? And then technically... Okay, yeah, I guess it's just mutual respect for these pocket picks of theirs, man. The Hanzo, the Harley, and I'm expecting, you know, the X-Borg next, and then the Minotaur.
Okay. At some point, Mirko, we have to see Kilauea on the Hanzo. Like, we that's 2 days in a row now. We've been robbed
off a Hanzo game from Kilauea, bro. And also of a Harley game from the side of Mali.
Yeah, for Dark Prime, right? So at some point we got to see this.
Are you sure it's Dark Prime and not Billy?
Oh, good. Actually, yeah, you could actually park Harley there as well. So there's a last ban. We're through the first phase. Is this just Loyi priority then? Like, I'm wondering if that's exactly what Mali wants to do. We saw this previously on just flip side with Senegal. So there it is. This is very smart to do anyway. You pick up the Loyi, you base your composition off the fact that you have diversion now. And not only that, like, I know we talk about diversion every single time that Loyi's picked up, but just the way that her kit works, even early game, it's actually a lot of kind of like surprise early damage. Especially if it's utilized around that first turtle take, or even let's say an early invade on the jungle. I know there's, you know, that passive that comes through that, but there's a lot of unexpected early burst damage that can even come out in the lane from a Loyi.
Mathilda though, maybe picked up. Do they want to go for the Yuzong now? Do they want to just put Diablo on a comfort pick? Yeah.
Yep.
Seems the Mathilda and the Yuzong, the two flying heroes we can call, you know, with the Black Dragon form and the Guiding Wind and the Circling Eagle. Mobility is still their #1 priority, and that sustain is very underrated, right? You would expect on paper the Rafaela to provide more healing compared to the Mathilda, but that photo, especially when you get ahead in the early game with the Guiding Wind, it's very deceiving. You expect it to just be more of a dash, right? That Guiding Wind, but he gets so much HP shielding as well over to everyone when he has the photo, but you know, to the one member as well, especially when he rotates over to these individual lanes. Xavier gonna be hovered over. This is, I think, the give and take. This is the negative and also the positive of playing so much Akai for Kilauea. You understand how to play it, and you also understand how to counter it. So the Xavier pick here, it makes sense. You want to try to bait out the heavy spin, and something like the Mystic Field can force out the heavy spin to be used up, not to disengage, but to just get that anti-CC down. Because when you're already in that immobility field, and then say the marksman that they pick up later on gets to just free hit on the Akai, and then obviously, you know, we have the Yuzong and so much damage output already for the side of Senegal. It is going to be very, very difficult for the Akai. Akai's biggest weakness is damage and poke, and they go for damage, but that's not poke. That's all in. Yuzong, Leomord, and Mathilda, they're looking to dive into that front to back composition, bro.
This is that's scary, man, because if you think about it, like, think about a flying horse now. Right, so like you have a flying dragon and you have a flying horse basically paired up with a Matilda. So there's going to be a whole lot of just flying animals or creatures that now Mali has to deal with. And you know, when you're Beatrix, that's not fun, man. You know, you don't have as much room to kind of maneuver around, switching guns, of course, trying to find the right ones when you're dealing with so much mobility being thrown at you. Because even if you take the Matilda out of the picture from Senegal, like Yuzong and Leomord alone are enough to really cause a lot of kind of just awareness for the enemy team. Like, where are they going to come from? How fast are they going to just kind of try to overflow on some of these lanes and some of the pressure that they can put out? And it's been a minute. It's been a while since I've seen Leomord in the jungle. And I know, you know, more so on your side of Southeast Asia over here, it does pop up once in a while, but really over here, it's something that's still kind of a pocket, like, niche pick, and it really is certain, you know, players and junglers that can pull that off. But interesting too, we're going to see some of these roam bands banned out from Senegal. We saw the Angela now, the Arlot's taken out. So I'm still kind of wondering, you know, with this, what is the game plan here for Mali to hopefully get them to a game 3?
Let's see. Good Natan ban though, right? So they're already adapting to game #1. They saw how much that weak side Natan could actually Snowball as well, on top of just being a scaling hero, and that's a good Moskov ban too. So 2 heroes with kind of the same playstyle, only the Moskov will be active way earlier compared to the Natan because of that Spear of Destruction. So they already have the Lo Yi. They want to take away as much global presence as they possibly can, right? I mean, the Angela's been taken out by Senegal and now the Moskov, but something that is still up for grabs that will, I think, multiply the threat of this dive comp is definitely a chip. The chip was banned out in game number 1, but now it has been left open. It was also banned out by Senegal, by the way. So maybe Senegal are just not comfortable on that pick. They've also already picked up the Mathilda, so I don't think they want to try to put in the Mathilda as a mid laner anyways. But still, that's definitely something that you can still think about here for Senegal if they really want to go for the brawls. Safe choice, though, would probably just be a mid laner. And yeah, they're doubling down on that dive, bro. They have the dive already. They have the damage, but what they might not have is enough HP to tank up the damage coming down from the Lo Yi in the early game. So good Faramis pick here. Another realm to provide them another layer of HP, but I would say this is a good adjustment too from the side of Mali. I love that pick. The Minsathar, something we don't see a whole lot of. I don't think we've seen it at all actually from our own regions, Naisu, but up against a dive comp, if it's not the Edith and the Minotaur, yeah, the Minsathar does a pretty good job as well. You put that King's Calling down and everybody who dives in technically gets damaged so much. I actually was just yesterday after, you know, after we were done casting, I played a few games of MLBB and I went up against the Minsathar, bro.
Oh,
I was on a Roger and I dove on him, bro. Okay, firstly, the Minsathar went full attack speed build. He went for damage. And it was ridiculous. My whole team got wiped by that Minsathar. We still ended up winning the game, you know, because it's very one-dimensional. Yeah. But considering the rest of the composition has already kind of covered the weaknesses of the Minsathar, they have the range, they have that mobility as well, they have that diversion to give him some solid angles to attack from the flanks. This could work, honestly, for the side of Mali.
Good. Yeah. I was just going to say that, man. Like, I actually, so regardless of what this last pick was, I actually like the lineup that Mali's bringing to the table here. Because even though I said there's a ton of mobility that can be utilized from Senegal, the main thing is these are responses in these last couple picks to deal with that, right? And not only that, but utilizing a diversion now. You can actually use that really well with having an implosion or the King's Calling. Like, this is almost on the same kind of technical level of overlapping of abilities between what we were theorizing between the Alpha and the Sylvana. Like, this is almost something similar where, like, okay, now you have an implosion that you can utilize with King's Calling. You can actually set some nasty combinations, some nasty wombo combos up if you want to. Because even with diversion, like, again, setting everything up in that central area with an implosion or the King's Calling, that allows so much of those, you know, the passives, of course, from Louis to activate, and that's where that burst damage comes from. So it's almost like Senegal has to actually play around the fact that they don't want to fight front to front or get forced into a fight, because again, the Spear of Glory can actually be enough to set those things up even without a diversion.
Their biggest problem, however, is still going to be the Purify. And we see 3 Purifies picked up by Senegal. They're ready for this Super CC composition of Team Mali. Ladies and gentlemen, game number 2. We're going to dive straight into the land of Dawn to see Senegal versus Mali. And this time, Killuane is, I would say, even though I haven't seen a lot of Killuane on damage dealers, I think this is a bit more comfortable for him. Meanwhile, oh my goodness! Early game, level 1. Level 1, Diablo's already bullying Dark Prime, bro. And it seems like
Yu Zhong, man.
Wait, Naisu, Dark Prime is now in the XP, no longer in the jungle. Elsis is taken over in the XP.
Okay, so so wait, hold on. They did a little swapperoo right now, but gonna be fighting for these resources. We'll talk about that in just a second. I think they're just gonna force him back here. Oh, they're gonna get caught by Diablo, who comes in, crashes down. What a response to the rotation early on here to put Senegal on the board 2-0.
What a great start for Senegal. They started 2-0 as well just in the previous game, but this is so much earlier. First minute of the game, and they were able to get the first 2 kills down. Good rotation by Diablo, and obviously it's through the lane priority. He was able to win out in that lane so early, and I think for Dark Prime, he did not respect the level 1 power that the Yu Zhong has in that lane. If you go all in up against the Yu Zhong in the early game, especially level 1, you're not going to be able to live to tell the tale. But it also seems like Senegal want to use the strong side in the bottom lane, Naisu.
Bottom lane? Okay, it looks like he burned the flicker out. So he did that, but that's what we were talking about. They were setting things up there in the bottom. Now they're here on the top, but Turtle's going to be spawning too. So this is kind of up to Mali. What do they want to do? Do they want to waste so much time up here on top side? It looks like Ellis is also going to get in position at least to show face for this Turtle, but it might just be better that they give the first Turtle the game up. Diablo once again rotating here. They're going to find Elsis out. Heavy spin going to be used, and there it is, secured once again by Senegal. Let's see if they actually still want to fight. Circling Eel going to be used as well. Now into King's Calling. Looking for is the one to go down. And now it's going to be Dark Prime. The focus in the fight under the orange buff as he falls to Pimp My World. And there they go. Senegal once again getting the momentum.
Insane momentum. 4-0. Deja vu to game number 1. It's the exact same start for the exact same team, but with a different composition. A composition that will be able to utilize the early game kills more efficiently. This is a dive comp, man, and unfortunately for Team Mali, if they fall too behind, it might be done with the second turtle, right? They have to stay very, very careful, very vigilant at this point of the game. They have to play towards the Beatrix, I feel, and also the Lo Yi. Looking for and skill to kill will be the two ways that they can actually hold the game off in the mid game to maybe scale off into the late game. But all the way from the start of the game, I actually realized something. Skill to kill, he didn't go for an item. I don't know if he sold his item a bit too late. I think he wanted to go for like the item swap from boots into a dagger at level 13. And now another dive.
Oh, that is just... This is what I was talking about earlier, man. I know, you're going to that explanation there, but I was saying the pressure from Senegal's lineup, if they want to just overload a lane or any member of Mali, that's exactly what they're going to do. Just like that, we saw it unfold there. And they'll get that tier 1 on top as well.
Oh, man. It almost seems like I say it and it happens, right? We were talking about how they need to play for the Beatrix, the Lo Yi, and another dive!
Mid lane again! Furious dive with the Petrify combination. Looking for will not be able to escape as he's taken down. Heavy spin already to be used from Elsis. Black Dragon form, but they're going to fight it out in the mid lane. Flicker comes into the King's Calling, though. Do they even have enough to fight off? They don't. Dark Prime will fall, too. Multiple bodies down for Mali. Senegal again just comes out clean, and that's going to be a turtle in their hands as well.
I said Mali needed to play with the Lo Yi, needed to play with skill to kill on the Beatrix as well to maybe possibly hold off in the mid game and then scale into the late game. Right as I say that, Senegal take over, they dive. One of the key factors to actually keep the game going, skill to kill shutdown, looking for shutdown even harder. And I was also saying that the game might be over after the second turtle. Senegal beat that as well. They said, no, we're going to end it technically before the second turtle even spawned in the game. They just dove in the mid lane and they were so far ahead with this dive composition that they were able to take control even with the King's Calling placed down. It almost technically had no impact there, right? I mean, the Purify just got them out of the stun, and Billy even isn't really able to get an implosion. He gets poked down so early even before the skirmish even happens, and he can't even utilize the flicker aggressively. Now another invade.
Oh, they're gonna go again, once again on the purple buff. Elsis has to use the heavy spin, trying to get out there. Dragon form gonna be there to help him out too. Lockdown once again under the tier 2. They don't care about the shots. Diablo's gonna be the one to fall. This is the fight back from Mali though. They're able to get 2, and Senegal went a little overzealous in the exchange.
Okay, there you go. That's the King's Calling I was talking about, right? When everybody dives in and nobody's able to disengage, nobody's able to utilize those dashes, you can still be caught. And that's why we were giving, a little bit of credit to the X factor that is the Mincetar. If Senegal get too ahead of themselves, they will give out shutdowns. And those are some big shutdowns that they actually gave out. Luckily, it's actually only on Diablo, right? They give a big shutdown from Diablo over. And technically for Senegal, they'll still be able to utilize most of the space. And Team Mali, on the other side, won't really be able to utilize any of the space that they created with that winning team fight to get any of these neutral objectives or even an objective, a structure on the board. So it's still all good for Senegal. That little mistake could just be a reality check for them, could just be like, a bit of an awakening for them, now understanding that, okay, the Mincetar can be a problem if we all dive into him, especially when our Purifiers are still on cooldown, and then there's an implosion to follow up the King's Calling that already locks us down in that big circle. So now Senegal, play it slow. They have all the leads that they have. 4,000 gold lead. Diablo still on the side as well. Turtle number 3, it seems like is going to be contested by Team Mali.
Circling Eagle going to be used. Right now, Mali trying to get in position. It's going to be kind of just felt out for now, though. Look at the Dragon form going to be entering the fight, the fray. Whoa. Trying to zone them out the best can. Phantom Steed going to be used as well. Still fighting for it. Just Dark Prime is going to be the one to fall. And Diablo once again on the backside gets locked down with a heavy spin. But multiple members make it for our gun from Mali. What just happened?
Looking for, tried to survive. He went to the diversion. He actually did get the diversion down, but then the DOT, that damage over time for the passive of the Yu Zhang, just kept on ticking. That was a fadeaway kill for Diablo and Team Mali. Oh man, I think they saw the last team fight. They thought it could work, their composition, but they completely forgot that there were very specific conditions for them to actually win that team fight, right? Earlier, it was between the tier 1 and the tier 2 when they won that team fight. And it was also Senegal diving in way too deep without their purifies. When the purifies are up, that combo cannot work. And Team Mali went in without the conditions, the specific conditions that they needed to win that team fight. Senegal just completely obliterated the forces of Mali there. And now we're seeing Mali on the defense. They can't really step up of their own base. If they do, well, they technically can, but they're 9,000 gold behind. Kilowane has a big Blade of Despair in his inventory. Heck, Pimp My World, at this point, he has the photo as well. He might actually have Blood Wings to get more shielding, or maybe just another magic item so that he can give more shielding and healing for the team. Dark Prime recalling the wrong bush, pops in the Knight's Call. Oh no, the King's Calling is not going to be ready. The diversion as well. Naisu, two big ultimates have been baited. And Senegal could use this. This is a window of opportunity for them to maybe crack the base open without the Lord.
No. Into the jungle. It looks like there was a fight. Billy, though, he's going to take the brunt of the damage. Phantom Seed going to be used. Heavy spin already there as well. Circling Eel on the backside. Trying to keep them zoned away from Elsis. It's a double for Gunk. Now Gunked online. They're going to force him back even further. It looked like from the map, Billy just approached that bush blind and got caught. So unfortunate for Mali. Now they're even further behind. Just like before, it's 11,000 gold gap between the two teams. Lord gonna spawn here in a couple seconds. But right now, Senegal now gonna set their sights on getting these shields down. They're gonna work the best they can. Circling Eagle, they might just look to put some more pressure here. Gunk, half health, has quite a bit of shield as well. Turret's gonna be worked on. Nearly half health on the turret, and Lord now for the taking. I'm not sure if Mali can even really contest this. They're just gonna have to go into defensive mode in the base.
Yeah, no, they can't. I think the only thing that they can do is maybe send Elsis there to try to go for a steal, but even then, Senegal have so much prio. You can see Pimp My World just screening Billy and screening Dark Prime, everybody, even Elsis, right? I mean, I don't think that Kai can even go for anything, and at this point, again, for Senegal, they're doing a really good job at just delaying this final push. They want to wait for those purifies to be back up again, and when those purifies are back up, Mali will have to layer their CC. It's hard enough landing the CC abilities on Senegal, but now you have to layer it upon the three big purifiers that they have. And we're going to take a look at the items here. Hunter Strike and the BOD already completed for Kilowane and is already building towards an endless battle. Or no, he's actually going to go for Thunderbolt, it seems. So a little bit more defense there and a little bit more utility to play with some slows coming in from the basic attacks after you use these abilities, and some true damage too. Yu Zhang basically going full damage at this point. The Dominance Ice is a bit more of a formality. It could have gone War Axe, Hunter Strike, maybe to a Malefic Roar at this point. They're so far ahead, and it looks like with the first Lord, they can actually crack open these base turrets.
They're going to force it once again. Mid-turret's going to go down here. Diablo jumps in, finds the setup. Phantom Steed already going to be used. Dark Prime going to be taken out of the picture. Billy worked on next. He does get a kill on Kilowane. They still have to deal with the Lord. They want to win the fight, but look at Gunked. Gets the kill. It's a triple. Can he get the Maniac? Base going to be worked on. He goes down, but that's going to be enough for Senegal to sweep Mali as they take the series.
This composition was built to snowball. The composition that we saw in game number 1 wasn't. That's why it went 14 minutes, and that's why in the 11th minute, Senegal were able to just steamroll through that siege. They didn't even need to take more than one base turret. They just pushed in that bottom lane. They let the minions get rid of the mid lane base turret, and Senegal come out 2-0, clean sweeping Mali. Wow, crazy adjustments made by Senegal after their loss yesterday up against Tunisia, man. And you can really see the difference here in their second match that we, get to cast for. I think we'll definitely take a look at the highlights here and talk about the little things that ended up with them getting small wins that built up to that big win. I think it's, again, them understanding how to utilize their advantages. It's nothing too flashy, it's nothing too crazy, it's just them understanding the core fundamentals of utilizing what their composition is made for. Akai, pick in the first game. Go for the neutral objectives with the Matilda as well. You have so much more mobility to play around compared to Mali. You have so much more poke as well. And that's what Senegal used. Diablo was so far ahead of Elsis. So every single turtle fight, he will always be there faster than Elsis. On top of that, you know, it did definitely feel like Elsis was not really comfortable on the Terizla. I don't know if it's because he's an actual jungler player, because they did swap eventually in game number 2. But I feel like it's just a big difference in the XP. Diablo was out-rotating, out-laning, out-damaging, and out-impacting the Terizla in game number 2. We saw the same thing, but, you know, to a different player. It's Dark Prime. And even in these neutral objective or actually the purple buff contests, it looked pretty good for Mali, but then you take a look at the deaths, and it's only Diablo who becomes the sacrificial lamb. This is another play that's a very good example to what I was saying earlier. Diablo gets used as a sacrificial lamb to go for that big petrify and the furious dive, and then to bait out all these resources. Take a look at this. When Gunked got low, he went back into the purple buff, went to clear it first, getting the HP necessary, and then rotated again to the bottom lane where everybody has used their ultimates. The only one player who has the ultimate up is skill to kill, but that's on a very low cooldown, and that's not, honestly, not the ultimate that they wanted to bait out anyways. So Senegal did a very good job layering their initiations, mainly from Diablo doing all the dirty work. Again, with the petrify and the furious dive, able to isolate the team, leaving Elsis for Gunk to melt down all alone in that Lord Pit. Now we know why the dinosaurs went extinct, you know, Naisu, that he just got, you know, soloed, isolated in the Lord Pit, getting damaged by a time traveler and the Lord. Definitely not a fun time for that dino. Definitely not a fun time for Detana or Barat. And, you know, again, we did mention that in game number 1, it was still a scaling composition. Despite them having such a massive lead in the first 11 minutes, they were not able to end because they're not a dive comp. And that's what really ended up prolonging the game. Mali, they were just reacting to all the plays. So it was really just Senegal not having that brute force damage to actually crash and take the game in an 11th minute. But it was a completely different story for game number 2. They had a composition built for that early game. In game 1, maybe they were trying to read out their opponents, right? Maybe they wanted to play with some insurances in the late game within a ton. But in game number 2, they were like, all right, we got the read on game number 1 and how Mali likes to play. And if they want to go for the invades, if they want to fight in the early game, we'll just double down on our amazing early game already. We'll double down on how good Diablo is, on how good Kilowane is, on the retribution as well, by the way. Because it's a hard thing to out-retry Elsis on the Akai with a heavy spin. That's more of a 70-30. It actually might be 100-0, but Kilowane makes it look so easy. Just out-retries him simply, and again, utilizing what advantages they have. That dive is absolutely disgusting. Skill to kill was level 3. He couldn't do anything there, man. And then these angles that Diablo was able to find constantly, even when Elsis looked for the heavy spin. When you have to use the heavy spin on one member to disengage, it's all cool. It's still good. 2 members, sure, right? But when you have to disengage on 5 members that dive on you, especially with a guiding wind, 3 purifies, and so much damage in the early game. We were talking about how poke is the biggest weakness for the Akai. Well, I guess burst is the biggest weakness now that we see this game. This is a mistake, though, that they made. No purifies were ready. It was still on cooldown after playing or after trying to dive in that mid lane tier 1. So they did make a mistake despite this dominant game. And I think, you know, for Senegal, they were okay to make that mistake because no real structures were taken down after that. Mali were unable to utilize that little win in that team fight. And again, I think for Mali, they failed to understand, they failed to recognize the very specific condition that their composition needs to get before winning a fight, right? They needed the purifies to be baited out. They needed to layer their CC. And unfortunately, at this point, when they were actually able to layer their CC properly, it was a bit too late. It was already when Senegal had a, 12,000 gold lead on Mali. Oh, man. Yeah, a bit of a stomp here in game number 2 with that snowball comp, that dive comp.
It was, you know, great just kind of breakdown for both of them. But yeah, especially in that game 2, it looked like, you know, when you pointed that out where they made the mistake diving in between the tier 1 and tier 2 turrets in the mid lane, and there was like that little glimmer of hope for Team Mali. it's like after that is when they approached, after that whole exchange, they approached the next objective, the turtle fight, and then they just got obliterated. It was like they had that little bit of hope, and they're like, let's do this, but they needed to kind of like recollect themselves and still kind of realize the situation of like how big of a disadvantage they were currently at. And I feel like if they were able to, and then continue to punish some of those overzealous mistakes that we did apparently see from Senegal,